Good evening, everybody. It's Sunday evening. It's 9 o'clock. It's tropical update time. I'm David Paul. We're here in the KHOU Weather Center, and our spot in the Northeast Gulf that even as late as Friday, modeling really didn't pick up on it being able to form a low at the surface, has been able to do exactly that. The mid-level circulation that we talked about on Friday, remember how we talked about the coffee cup, and if you just stir the top, it can slowly work the circulation down to the bottom of the cup, down to the surface? Well, that's exactly what happened. So Mother Nature has overperformed based on the modeling of late last week, and we have a tropical depression. This is tropical depression number 2. That's where it's centered. Current surface pressure down to 1,008 millibars. It's sitting still. It's stationary right now. Sustained winds are at 30, gusting to 40. So sustained winds need to get to 39 miles an hour for it to be upgraded to a tropical storm. And we in the Hurricane Center believes that is going to happen tomorrow. So we're likely looking at Tropical Storm BERTHA being officially named sometime during the day tomorrow as it's sitting over water. Sea surface temperatures out here are somewhere between 85 and 88 degrees, so it's plenty warm. That's really the biggest factor working for strengthening of this system, is how warm the sea surface temperatures are, because there are several factors, a couple of factors in particular working against it. We're going to talk about the wind shear that's cutting across this right now, and I think that may slow down the intensity. At the moment, you're looking at the forecast cone from the Hurricane Center. So we're starting with this. I'm going to show you all the modeling on this, and we're going to come back to this. It's forecasted to reach peak intensity at 60 miles an hour. So they're forecasting a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm as we head into Wednesday and Thursday as this moves across the Gulf. Here's Wednesday, here's Thursday. If it were to hold together as an entity, this would be Friday. When you look at this forecast cone, it's easy to focus on the center of the cone. We as humans focus on the center of things. I've drawn in the center of the cone, but it's just as likely statistically that the storm is here on Friday as it is here on Friday. That is about 475 miles across. So when you look at a forecast cone like this, understand that the middle of the cone, it's just as likely as it's here, here. It could be here, anywhere in this section of the cone by Friday, 1 in the afternoon, it could be here. So as you go out in time, the cone widens as the uncertainty grows. So just because the center of the cone is aiming right here at Matagorda Bay doesn't mean it can't be Dallas or down to Brownsville, or not even make it here. That scenario is in play as well. So let's go over all the moving parts that we know of right now. Tropical depression number 2. Here's the enhanced satellite. The center is here. There's not a whole lot of convection. There's more convection displaced off to the south and west of the storm than there is up here. And I want you to notice that. Notice how the upper level cloud tops are all going that way. They're all being pushed off to the southwest. There is shear at the mid levels and upper levels coming in across the system from northeast to southwest. That is going to be a big factor working against this system being able to strengthen. We'll see. We'll look at that in a second as well. You can see how dry we are here in Houston. A little closer view, and I've drawn in the surface wind streamlines. So we have a closed low. We've got a tropical depression. The winds go around the center, 360 degrees, completely closed. There's your tropical depression with some convection of storms near the center. I say some, not a lot. So we have a tropical depression, a weak tropical entity. You can see thunder showers back across Biloxi to New Orleans, and Tampa had some thunder showers, and so did the Big Bend of Florida today as well. So these are the surface winds. At the surface, we have our closed low of our tropical depression. The upper levels will determine a couple of things. I think how much shear it gets and where it's going to go. We always look at the mid and upper level winds for steering currents. So these are the steering currents. And what we see, here we are Sunday night, and this is actually going into Monday. The setup is going to be stuck like this for a week, is a gigantic ridge of high pressure. See the big clockwise flow? Very clear-cut upper level pattern. We've got a ridge of high pressure. This is the heat dome. Center of the high, that's the heat dome. That's why we're heating up so much here in Houston and Dallas and Oklahoma and Kansas over the next several days. That flow is going to be the dominant factor in steering whatever becomes of our tropical depression or tropical storm BERTHA. And in general, this is going to, the storms want to flow with that upper level flow. They flow around these ridges of high pressure and troughs of low pressure. They flow in the flow around those systems. So which way is this storm going to go? Monday into Tuesday. That ridge stays in place. It's going to, in general, want to push it west. But exactly where, whether it stays over water and is able to maybe strengthen a little bit more, or moves west, but it's a little further northerly track moving west and interacts with land, that would weaken it rapidly. Whether one or the other of those two outcomes happen is in question. That's the big uncertainty with this. So this is going to be one of those for we here in Houston, Galveston, where we just have to watch it once or twice a day. I want you to get an update once or twice a day. So if it does stay over water and is able to strengthen, we don't get caught off guard. If it bumps into land, that would weaken it rapidly. I'm going to show you both those scenarios here in just a second, but this is the driving force as to where this storm is going to go. And in general, with that flow and our system here, it is going to go west toward Texas to one degree or another. Now, let's dig in and sharpen the pencil on this just a little bit. First of all, not only is this the steering currents, everything moving east to west, but this is wind shear. We have shear cutting across this system. So we got a weak system struggling to develop, and there's wind shear cutting across the storm at the mid and upper levels from northeast to southwest. So remember, we talked about this in detail. I think I give this little speech almost every update. Why does wind shear matter? It's hugely important as to whether or not a system will form or not, or strengthen or weaken. Tropical systems, to intensify, especially to get strong, Cat 2, Cat 3 and above, they need to be vertically stacked, forming straight up and down through the vertical column of the atmosphere. This is what that looks like. This is a storm developing in an unsheared environment. Vertically stacked, everything's symmetrical. It allows the rotation to focus really tightly. There's nothing to disrupt it. And it can strengthen under those conditions. When you have shear, winds cutting across the storm at mid and upper levels, well, it tilts the whole thing over. And that disrupts the circulation. It can keep a circulation from forming at all if the shear is strong enough. It can rip apart a storm that's already formed. So the wind shear has a much larger impact on storm intensity, how strong it's going to get, how quickly it will weaken or strengthen, much larger by several factors than sea surface temperature. Sea surface temperature is just kind of once you get above 80, you can get a tropical storm or hurricane. So as I showed you, sea surface temps out here 85 to 88, it's almost bath water out there. It's really warm. But just because the water is that warm, it will not overcome wind shear. Wind shear is the big dog. So we've got wind shear, and that looks like the biggest factor in why the Hurricane Center intensity forecast, remember we looked at that, only takes it to a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. Let's take a look at the modeling on this. So this first model we're looking at, this is the European. This is one of the big global models that we lean heavily on. We, the whole meteorological global community. We all look at the Euro. We look at the Euro and we look at the GFS, two big ones. I'm showing you the Euro because it mirrors the GFS, the American model. They both have this very, very similar outcome. They develop this into BERTHA, a tropical storm, tomorrow, Tuesday. Nicely formed tropical storm. And then, when I put this in motion, but I'll just draw it first so you know what's going to happen, then the modeling takes it into the coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. And once it bumps into that coast, it just absolutely tears what little there is of this storm apart. So you'll have wind shear working against it, and the moment it bumps into that coastline, it allows that shear to really just take over. And you see how everything's elongated? That's what's left of the remnants of what was BERTHA, just kind of being ripped apart and sheared to the southwest. Maybe we get some high clouds. I honestly doubt we get any rain on this scenario. That's what the European model and the American model are both showing. Exact same outcome. However, high-res modeling, at least one of them, this is our in-house, this is what we call the graph, and we use this model quite a bit. Quite often this model nails it. The graph has a different outcome. It has the storm starting right here where it is. This is now. And this one has it sitting in the same spot tomorrow. We saw that it was stationary, so it's still stationary, but still over water. And then it moves it a little further west Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon into Wednesday afternoon, well, it's got a circulation south of New Orleans, still over the warm waters of the Gulf. And that's a little more concerning because if it can stay over warm water, it still has a chance of strengthening, developing, and actually getting in and impacting Texas in one way or another. Now, as you look at this modeling, you may notice there's not a whole lot of thunderstorm activity with this. And where the thunderstorm activity is, you know, if this is the center, it's to the south and actually southwest of the storm. That the modeling is picking up on the shear cutting across. And it's keeping it relatively disorganized. It may be a tropical storm, but a disorganized tropical storm as it develops and moves, even though it's still over water on the high-res modeling. So that wind shear, the modeling is picking up on it and keeping it even over water as a weak to moderate tropical storm. So at the moment, you know, we don't see a huge blow up in intensity because it won't be able to get vertically stacked. It's going to be tilted. So that's a factor working in our favor as far as keeping the system weak. I will say this, you know, on the track that takes it between Biloxi and New Orleans, you know, Houston, Galveston, the coast, we have zero impacts. On that track, if it stays over water and gets south of Louisiana, we will see at least some increased surf and seas coming in here. It's really too early to try to make a forecast on that, but I'm just telling you, in that position, we would see coastal impacts with an increase in surf and seas at a minimum going into the end of this coming week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So just on the coast, keep that in mind as right now, that would be the most likely impact that we would have if it gets here. And so those are the two biggest outcomes right there. Those are the two biggest factors. Inland, weak system, Houston, Galveston feels nothing, or it takes a furtherly southern track, stays out over the water, and we feel a little bit more here in Houston, Galveston. Spaghetti plots, and you can see this describes the uncertainty beautifully. We kind of have a grouping that takes it in here, and we've got a little grouping that takes it further to the west and impacts we here on the Texas coast. So what do you do with all that information? At the moment, it's just a matter of you monitoring, and if you're on the coast, be prepared. If you've got a boat, if you've got marine interests, you need to be thinking about what preps you want to take in case this does get over here and impact us, and in case it is a little more intense than modeling is suggesting at the moment. You know, back to where we started, there's the big picture, so you can see why. Now you understand a little more why the forecast cone looks the way it does. The modeling, it doesn't intensify because of the upper level shear. The uncertainty, that's 575 miles of possibility right there. So again, with all of that information, here's what I wrote as far as, we'll look at the 7-day forecast first, and then I'll show you what I wrote on that. So what I'm doing right now for Houston, Galveston is, we're bone dry through Wednesday, regardless of the outcome. And then I'm going to go with just 20% rain chance right now. That also reflects uncertainty that far out as to how this is going to play. We're monitoring tropical depression number 2. It's expected to become BERTHA. Impacts possible here, Houston, Galveston, late week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If it takes that track that can get it in here. And just what do? Stay close to the forecast. Just stay very close. We've already had a bit of a surprise where this was able to work its way all the way down from the mid-levels to the surface to create this surface-based tropical system. So it's already kind of overperformed what the modeling was showing last week. It's possible it could overperform what the modeling is showing right now. So again, always at 9 o'clock, we have this complete live update where we just dig into everything. We'll talk about this on the 10 o'clock news tonight as well. That's so it's 9:15. So in 45 minutes, we'll have another update. Hurricane Center does have we'll have an updated forecast track coming out in about a half an hour. So we'll get a fresh, updated cone right before the 10 o'clock news. That's our next live broadcast. We'll see you then for the update.